welcome to Seriously Uncork Yourself. I am your host, Lynn Kuhn, and this is a podcast that brings to you a firsthand look at what it seriously means to meet people where they are in their life. Enjoy the experience from illusions to reality. Find out what it is to restore to high performance, renew your freedoms, and rejuvenate playfulness. I can't wait to share with you my experience and the experiences of many others in hopes that you feel inspired to renew yourself and live your best life. Thanks for listening. Now let's get started. Hi, everyone. I am so excited today to have Robert Murray with us. He is a genuine, just loving person that I've met. And we met a couple years ago with CHBC, which is Certified High Performance Coaching. And I'm so excited that you are here today, Robert, with us. And I was going to ask you if you would be able to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey that got you to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, glad to. So as you said, I'm a certified high performance coach. I'm also a facilitator of group conversations using a method called XChange. And the two of those combined are really superpowers together. It's awesome how coaching and large group facilitation and really guiding conversations of helping people come together works completely well in tandem with each other. So you asked a little bit about how I got into this and what my origin story is. And it was funny because I think I was actually doing this, like some of this stuff was baked into my DNA from an early age onward. I got involved with a management consultant, or actually my mom was studying with a management consultant who had the crazy idea that business could be an agent of change for good in the world, that if you concentrated on things such as doing the right thing for your customers, doing the right thing for your suppliers, really eliminating the cost of some of the bad behavior and the friction that occurs in most organizations, that you didn't have to focus on money and some of the normal metrics that were occurring in a business setting. And of course, people and he had these ideas back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and people were like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They love the results that he got because he was able to solve some of the most difficult labor relation problems. But in terms of using it for a business, they're like, no, stupid. Businesses are about making money. I want to make a ton of money. That's what the business is for. And that was kind of you remember particularly in the 80s when this business started, right. It was all about, greed is good, grow a business.
Right, yeah.
Possible. So what happened is we started a business because nobody liked the idea from his consulting standpoint. We started a business just to try these theories out.
And how old were you?
I was 15.
I know, it's remarkable.
Actually, I was, the truth be told, I was actually hanging around at the office probably when I was 13 and 14, but you're not allowed to work until you're 15. So I started when I was 15. And the thing that was interesting about this is that using those principles, we created an environment where I literally had 20 years of my life that I didn't know I was working. We had a higher aspirational mission. We had something, because we were in the automotive business, but we didn't care about automotive parts. What we cared about is proving the point that these theories worked. And we also had a system for guiding conversations such that the interactions that we had, we loved each other. We felt safe with each other. We really cared about each other's progress, each other's lives. And so the teamwork was through the roof.
Yeah. And so you made camaraderie then, right? With everybody? Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. The net result was that we had a situation where I went 20 years of my working career not knowing I was working. I was just coming in, hanging out with my friends, doing something I loved, and we were growing a business together. That started from about 20 of us when I first started to 1,000 employees and $200 million in revenue.
That's just absolutely remarkable. Holy smokers. Yeah. And now, what are you doing today? I heard there's something with the certified exchange facilitation that you're doing. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things, and I think the thing that got me interested in the exchange facilitation is understanding the power of questions and how we guide the thought process and what we're focusing our attention on. So, like in that business, and obviously this was the reverse hero's journey story, right? Like we built this fabulous business together, and then we started asking ourselves the wrong questions. We asked ourselves as we were growing exponentially through, like we were growing $20 million a year in revenue. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We got to 200 million. How do we get to $500 million? Well, that was the wrong question. Now, in hindsight, the kind of work that I would do is that the right question is, what are the things that we have been doing right for the last 20 plus years that have gotten us this exponential growth to 200 million that we should keep doing in order to continue our path to growth? But what we did ask is, how do we get to $500 million? We started focusing on metrics. We brought in consultants who said, oh, well, this whole thing where you guys are getting together and you're having conversations and you're talking about what's the right thing to do and you're bringing out the strengths in each other, that takes too long. What you really need to do is all management needs to lock themselves in a room, come up with a strategic plan, and tell everybody else that's the way we're going. You can imagine what happened in that. I mean, the culture just fell apart. And it really, so it was like that particular image was burned into my mind so badly because of how great an environment we had, and then how quickly it turned into the traditional command and control, top down, one person has all the answers types of things. So to answer your question, and this was a long way of answering it, the thing that excites me so much about XChange and what I'm doing with now the XJet, which is, my version of that, is where it brings back all the elements of how to guide conversations in a positive way so that like we can take a company or an organization from, the old traditional command and control model to that thriving organization that we had when we didn't even know we were working and we were growing $20 million a year.
Wow, that's just fantastic. And so with, everything that you've been through, what would be, because I consider you an expert in your field, what would you suggest to that very brand new entrepreneur that's out there that is just, getting started maybe in a business, getting started maybe in coaching, wherever that they may be? What would you suggest to them to help them simplify? In other words, maybe get rid of. That's what I've been sort of looking at this, because it seems like there's so much. But what's your opinion on this? Like, what would you suggest to that brand new entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that a brand new entrepreneur really has to ask themselves is, what's important to me? Like, what is it that I really care about? And who am I as, like, really to first deeply understand himself. And then based on that, some of the logical questions that come from that is, well, who do I love to work with? What do I love doing? What are my strengths that I can take out into the world? And when you start doing that, you get a sense of what it is that you're meant to be doing. I've coached a lot of coaches and people who are starting out, like my particular client base when I'm doing coaching, or is really somebody who is kind of breaking out of the corporate world and reinventing themselves as an entrepreneur or a business owner or a coach. And one of the things that I found for myself, and this was just something I learned from personal experience, is that clarity comes from experimentation in action. And I'll have to unpack that a little bit, but clarity comes from experimentation, which means I thought, that I could take yet another online course, and Lord knows when you reinvent yourself, because this was me reinventing myself from the corporate world as a coach and an entrepreneur. I thought first going to every live event that I possibly could for 18 months straight, where literally I think I counted one stretch where I had 50 out of 52 weeks, I was going to an event 50 of the 52 weeks. I only had 2 weeks that I was at home. Okay.
Wow.
Don't try this at home. Don't try this as a new entrepreneur. Don't try this. Yeah. Not unless you want to confuse yourself and burn through a lot of time and a lot of cash quick.
Yes.
And then the other thing was signing up for every program and trying to do those. And the thing that I didn't take the time to do that I would now, the current version of myself would tell the 4-year-old go version of myself is figure out what you care about first, who it is, what change do you want to make in the world, what do you want to do? And it doesn't come from journaling. That's not where the clarity comes from. The clarity comes from running experiments of the things that you think you really care about. And I'll give you a specific example. So I took the XChange training in April of 2017. Okay. And then I was invited to an event, or the leader of the event was hosting something called the Fourth Global Forum for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. Sounds really academic because it was Western University. But what it did is it brought a bunch of business leaders together, 400 business leaders together in a room, and they were going to actually be developing strategic initiatives for their own companies. And on the third day of this, so I was invited in because of having had the training, I was invited in as a co-facilitator. And the third day of the training, this guy stops me and he says, I want to know where you live and what you do. I'm like, okay, that seems like a strange question to me. Like, why are you asking that particular question? Mm-hmm. And I said, right now I'm on my way to another meeting. Let's circle back. So I circled back with him on the fourth day of this thing. And I said, okay, why did you ask this question? And he said, I want to know what you're doing and where you live, because every time I see you, you have the biggest smile on your face. And I want to know what makes you so happy. And it just hit me when he said that, and I think I had tears coming to my eyes. Sometimes I still do when the story comes to mind, because it's like, in this moment right now, doing what I'm doing, guiding conscious leaders in business to develop initiatives for themselves and grow their business and establish it better. This is what I care about more than anything else. So I'm walking around with this huge smile on my face because I'm doing exactly what I most love to do. And then that's the experimentation in action. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that clarity if I hadn't shown up at that event. And the experiment was, attempting 5 or 10 or 15, or maybe in my case, 100 different things that didn't work. And then realizing which one really connected with me, who was the thing that did work.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely so true. And I love that, because when I did meet you, well, I met you a couple different times, but the last time we just went out for a bite to eat. There was a group of us, and I didn't know who was who or who did what there, but you were that person. You were the one that was joyous, and you were the one that took that extra time to ask the questions to me. And, as we walked back and you were saying about, where you were rooming and all this other kind of stuff, and asking, because I said that I had a little bit of a hard time, didn't know if I was going to have, somebody stay with me. And, we just talked about all the stuff that, anybody would talk to you about. But with your background, you don't have, like, sometimes people are not like that, but you were so gracious and kind, and you do have that smile on your face all the time. And that's what I really love about you. And so, what would, the next question I have is now to reverse role play that in a little bit of a sense. What would you suggest to the person that is established, the person that would be considered an expert in their field, to do nowadays to get further in their business, that what they're doing? I mean, what are some, you touched on about a little bit of it, but what would you be wanting to say to that person right now if you're talking to them?
Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice I'd have is start realizing that the wisdom. So, like, if you're leading a team, if you're leading an organization, understand that we've come to a point in history where the pace of change, the pace of technology has grown so rapidly that it's almost not in our ability to keep up with it as humans, right? We need a better way of organizing our thought processes, the ways we interact. And the best way to do that is really through group conversations. And if you're doing that, if you're leading a team, an organization, guiding, the thing that's most important is to realize that you don't have to have all the answers, which is like if you're leading a company, just like, wow, I don't have to have all the answers. It's like such a huge relief, and it simplifies things. Realizing that we're moving from a situation where instead of the old environment of running organizations with one person having all the answers and telling everybody else what to do, we're really moving to a system where we're recognizing that the thing that we need to have as leaders is better questions. And we're just guiding the conversations. We're guides, we're mentors, we're coaches.
I love that.
Within our own organization. We are no longer leaders. We are no longer dictators. We are no longer commanders. We are no longer captains, whatever term you want to use for the old model of running an organization. We don't need to do that anymore. We just need to be ourselves, guide conversations, let people bring out their own truths, what they care about, and then you're really crowdsourcing the wisdom of your organization to get to where they want to go. And I would actually tell a leader to go as far as, rather than giving them a mission statement, let them create their own mission statement. Rather than giving them strategic initiatives, let them come up with their own strategic initiatives. Rather than telling them how they should learn and grow, let them come up with their own learning and development journey.
I love that, because I mean that's so true, even with family. And that's where the next question I wanted to ask you is, like, how do you balance all this? How do you balance, like, with family and seeing family, and even with the community that you built as being your family? Because there's so many things going on, that how do you balance everything without leaving somebody, like, behind? Like you're saying, even like with your businesses, it's really nice to get everybody involved and have them figure out what they're going to do. So what do you do as far as maybe more of a person on a personal level? What do you do to balance your life, basically?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I do, and I'm not sure if there is, it's kind of like, you know, I know a lot of people are talking about the work-life balance, and I think really I love the idea of seasons a little bit more, like things that I'm focusing on right now, and I'm in a particular season, and I'm concentrating my attention. And I think that simplifies things a lot, because, you know, like one of the number one tips I would give somebody who's feeling stressed, overwhelmed, burnt out is to start focusing on what are the big things that really matter to you personally. Like once you figure out what it is that matters to you personally, then you're concentrating in that one area as much as possible. And so what I tend to do is I go in those seasons and think, what is the season I'm in, and then who can I help and support? So you're talking about family. Who can I help and support in that season? So, you know, like if we had, and I'll just give you a real-time example, because a lot of us were at the High Performance Coach Certification Week. Well, that was the season to focus fully on the coach family and the coach community. And so I was pouring more into Facebook. I was offering more gives. I was making sure that when I showed up at that event, that I was with them fully, and that I was finding out what they cared about. I was super appreciative. So you said, you know, like, how do you build bonds in families or any group of people? One of the things is just to be unbelievably appreciative. Like, I actually think about what I appreciate about the community as a whole, the individuals in the community, the way that they're working together, and I'll have that in my mind before I'll go to an event. So that's one way. And then when I'm done with that event, I may move into a different season of a different level of community. Like coming out of High Performance Coach Training Week, Brendan was challenging us to get ourselves out there and get good at sales. Okay, so now I'm in the season of getting really good at having sales conversations or marketing or explaining the work that I do to people. So there's these little learning journeys that I go on. So I tend to think of that balance as being kind of a seasonal balance. And I'm not sure that I answered the question about family, but the thing that I really love to do is I just make decisions with whoever it is that I'm with, how I want to show up in the world.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful. Because I mean, just to touch on what you're saying about with the CHPC, when I joined a couple of years ago, I went there and I really did not know what to expect. And so, but when you build a community of people and which that's what I had joined into that I didn't know. I mean, it was, there was no barriers. There was no bound. I mean, there, like everybody was like on the same playing field, and it really made you feel welcomed in there. You didn't feel, like you weren't included or whatever. And I mean, it still was a little scary because I mean, he does work us. I mean, when you're a coach and the client, the coach, I mean, and you don't know who you're going to be with. It's, I thought when I knew what I was going into as far as that, because he stresses that before you even sign up for it. Right. And so I told myself, I'm going to do it, and I mean, and to tell you the truth, there's a lot of times where I was just going to say, well, I've already been the coach this time. I'll just be the client, knowing that I didn't, because that was more scary to be the coach. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was it's such a great community. And I think that, being there and learning from that. And the other thing that I really love that you said is about seasons. Mm-hmm. That, because the whole summit is on simplicity and balance, but I don't think there's ever any perfect balance. Mm-hmm. Because, at the last holiday we just had, and, everything is going along. I get a phone call, my daughter's in the ER, so, I mean, everything's good. We're all good. But it's just like, you don't know, what's going to happen. And so, but trying to get things balanced, make, things a little bit more organized, sometimes I think that's wonderful. And like you said, you went, and now you're going to, focus on the next season. And if you keep that in your life and that's how you're running with that, I think that is so important for everybody, because I do believe there's so much burnout, there's so much overwhelm, there's so much, I mean, you look at the webs now. I mean, you can find anything, and you can get so focused, and then you want to grab the next thing, and you want to grab the next thing, but then you don't really learn. I mean, you're learning, but you're not, executing it. You're not going into action. And so, and they always say to do something that, scares you, and, because you'll get over it. And I believe that's really, a lot of this too, that will help you to move forward. And do you have any last words that you would like to say before I talk on your special guest that you're going to be offering to everyone?
Yeah, well, I think the only other thing, because you talked about how to connect with family, and I'll give you, because, we're in that season of connection right now. Right. Which is one of the best things to do is to start training your brain to recognize the strengths of the people that are around you, and then mm-hmm. to call attention to them. I've never seen better connection with family members. I've never seen better connection with team members than when I can call out to somebody, hey, Lynn, the thing that I appreciate about you is the way that you show up. The thing that I appreciate about you is the fact that you're doing big, scary things, that you're putting yourself out there on a summit, which may or may not be something that you've ever tried before, but instead of just shrinking from it, you're going for it, that you're taking the work into the world, and you're really looking at a way to scale it and get it out there. And when you do that, and you could find something to appreciate in almost anyone, that you create that sense of connection that can't be duplicated by artificial means. Like that's the way to create really great connection. And it works with family members, it works with community members, it works with whoever it is on your team.
Yeah, and that is so true. And like with us, with the girls, we have 6 daughters together, and so it's like it's always moving. Everything's moving all the time. There's something new every single day. But what I've learned as being a mom, and of course I'm also a mom in recovery, I've been in recovery for 8 years, and so going on 8 years. And so it's just like, there's a time in my life where everything was, roses and, going along fine. But what I've learned from all that is that exactly what you're saying is spending that quality time. It's like stopping what you're doing, recognizing who you're with, who you're talking to, and really being grateful for that person. And I think that is so important. And I love that. Thank you so much for bringing that in. I think that really is important. Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you took time out of your busy day. And I know that you had a very busy day today when we were talking before we went on here today. Yeah. And I really appreciate you. And I can't express more that I am just really grateful for having you and knowing you personally too. Thank you so much, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite, and I really enjoyed the time that we were able to spend together.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Cool. you for tuning into the show. I hope this brought out your passions, ignited you, and inspired you to restart and reclaim your life. Please subscribe to my podcast and feel free to leave a rating and a review. Until the next episode of Seriously Uncork Yourself, you can check out more information at lynkuhn.com. That's Lynn, Lynn, Kuhn, Kuhn.com. Be sure to tune in for my next episode. Sending you all peace and love until our next time together. Seriously Uncork Yourself.